Predators versus prey is one of nature's oldest battles, but in Australia's deserts, scientists are asking a radical question: can fragile native marsupials actually learn to live alongside one of their deadliest enemies, the feral cat? And this is the part most people miss. The goal is not to wipe cats out entirely, but to help native species get smart enough to survive them. Vanished desert natives. Across the dry heart of the Australian outback, many of the country's small, unique marsupials, like bilbies, bandicoots and quolls, have disappeared from vast areas for more than 100 years. These animals were hit hard by land clearing and, especially, by the arrival of feral cats, which are fast, stealthy hunters that local species never had the chance to evolve with. Domestic cats, brought in by European colonizers and settlers, adapted quickly to life in the wild and became highly efficient predators in the desert. Native mammals that had evolved without this kind of silent, agile hunter simply did not have the instincts or behaviors needed to recognize and escape them, so many populations collapsed. A bold survival experiment. Because attempts to completely remove feral cats from the landscape have largely failed, a group of scientists is trying something more daring. They are testing whether small marsupials can, over time, train themselves to coexist with cats. The idea is to give native animals enough exposure to low levels of risk that they can learn new behaviors and, over generations, become savvier and harder to kill. This experiment takes place inside a huge training zone of about 100 square kilometers within the 3,200 square kilometer Sturt National Park in northwest New South Wales. Nearby, there are also two fully fenced areas where feral cats are excluded, and where conservation teams have reintroduced 6 species of small marsupials, from crest-tailed mulgars to bilbies and quolls. Remembered residents return. These reintroduced species are not strangers to the region. They lived there around a century ago before cats and foxes wiped them out locally. In the past, these bite-sized marsupials were easy targets and were devastated once introduced predators arrived. The challenge now is clear: how do conservationists help these native species wise up to a predator they did not evolve alongside? Instead of relying only on physical barriers, the project is trying to rebuild lost survival skills so that future generations are naturally more cautious and better prepared. How the training zone works. The training zone is partially protected by dingo fences on 2 sides, which also block some, but not all, feral cats. This is intentional. The aim is not to create a completely safe bubble, but a landscape where predator numbers are low enough that prey can survive, learn and breed. Inside the zone, cat populations are kept down through targeted control methods, including shooting and specialized devices that distinguish between native animals and cats. These devices spray a lethal toxin onto a cat's fur, which the cat then ingests while grooming, reducing cat numbers without harming local wildlife. A controlled level of danger. Thanks to these controls, cat density in the training area sits at roughly 3 cats per square kilometer. Outside the zone, that number can be around 10 times higher, creating a much more dangerous environment for small mammals. Across Australia, feral cats are estimated to kill billions of native animals every year, including mammals, birds, reptiles and frogs. Against that backdrop, even a small reduction in cat density, combined with smarter prey behavior, could make a big difference to survival. Taking back the desert. At the heart of this work is Dr. Bec West, the principal ecologist for the Wild Deserts Project, who lives with her family in an old homestead inside the national park. Her life and work are deeply intertwined with the landscape and the animals returning to it. Since 2024, the team has released 51 western quolls, 305 bilbies, and 234 golden bandicoots, all listed as nationally threatened species, into the training zone. The next planned arrivals are burrowing bettongs, another small marsupial once widespread and now largely gone from mainland Australia. Predation as part of the plan. The team is realistic. Some of the released animals will be killed by cats. But here's where it gets controversial. The project treats a certain level of predation as natural and even necessary, because it creates the conditions for learning and adaptation. In a recent check, the Wild Deserts crew captured 57 individuals, quolls, bilbies, and bandicoots, inside the training zone. Some, like the bilbies and quolls, had been living there for at least a year, while bandicoots had made it through at least 3 months, suggesting they are starting to cope in a landscape that still contains cats. Watching the desert come alive. Every month, West team reviews thousands of images from about 50 motion-activated cameras placed around the training zone. These cameras record both predators and prey, allowing the team to monitor changes in behavior and abundance over time. In recent months, the cameras have shown something encouraging: more bilbies and quolls appearing in the images than cats. For the scientists, this is a powerful sign that native animals are not just clinging on, but slowly reclaiming their place in the desert. Learning to outsmart cats. So how exactly might these marsupials learn to live with cats? Some individuals may simply observe, survive and pass on behaviors, with each generation becoming a little quicker to react to danger. Others might instinctively become more cautious in areas where they detect predators. Research from another desert region in South Australia has shown that burrowing bettongs become more alert and vigilant when cats are present. This suggests that exposure to predators can trigger changes in behavior, such as spending less time in the open or being more selective about when and where they forage. Evolution in real time. In one striking experiment, scientists monitored 2 groups of bilbies over several years, one group living in an area with cats, and another without. After about 5 years, the bilbies exposed to cats had noticeably larger feet and reacted much faster to approaching humans, bolting sooner than their cat-free counterparts. These changes imply that bilbies living with predators had become more suspicious of potential threats, and that physical traits like bigger feet may help them sprint or maneuver more effectively when escaping. It is a glimpse of evolution and behavioral adaptation happening over just a few generations. Spreading predator-savvy genes. The reintroduced species have now spread across the entire training zone, which means they are not just surviving in a small corner but using the habitat more widely. They have bred successfully, and their young have grown up knowing a world where cats exist and must be avoided. The long-term hope is that these predator-smart animals can eventually be moved to new areas to re-establish wild populations. If they carry their hard-won behaviors and traits with them, they could form the foundation of more resilient marsupial communities beyond the training site. Marsupials as ecosystem engineers. Small marsupials like bilbies, bandicoots, and bettongs are sometimes called ecosystem engineers because their digging and foraging activities transform the soil. As they dig for food or create burrows, they turn over the earth, forming small pits and depressions. These tiny holes can trap water and organic matter, creating microhabitats where seeds can settle and germinate. Over time, this helps native plants to establish and spread, improving soil health and boosting the overall diversity of the ecosystem. Desert floor transformed. In the 2 fully cat-free fence zones near the training area, the impact of these animals is already dramatic. As their numbers have increased, the ground has changed from relatively bare soil to a patchwork of diggings, small hollows and flourishing vegetation. West describes the area as almost unrecognizable compared with how it looked before the marsupials were reintroduced. The ground is so churned and pitted by their activity that walking across it carries a real chance of twisting an ankle on the uneven surface, a small human inconvenience that signals a much healthier desert. The controversial question. This experiment raises a bold and uncomfortable question: should conservation focus only on removing invasive predators, or is it time to deliberately teach native species to live with a certain level of danger? Some people argue that exposing threatened animals to any risk from cats is too cruel or risky, while others say that without this pressure, true long-term survival in an open landscape is impossible. So what do you think? Is it worth accepting some losses